I would like to call the school board meeting for April 7th, 2015 for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Please take the roll.
Ms. Caldwell-Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Ms. Boson?
Here.
Ms. Ellsbernd?
Here.
Mr. Barron?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
First item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Approval.
Motion by Ms. Boson, second by Mr. Sweeney. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve minutes from March 10th, 2015?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Please vote.
You gotta be a little faster.
Vote is approved 6-0 with one abstained. Next on the agenda are district recognitions, and I will turn it over to Dr. Ahart.
Good evening, Board. We have a couple of recognitions this evening. In recent years, we have had several recognitions about the success of our high school debaters, and of course, they involved one high school in particular, Roosevelt. While Roosevelt continues to be one of the top high school debate programs around, we are seeing the bar being raised at other high schools in Des Moines, a trend I think will continue into the future, as debate is one of several activities now growing at the middle school level as well as the high school level. Lincoln High School is a great example of what I'm talking about. Last year, the National Forensic League presented them with the Leading Chapter Award, one of only 110 schools in the nation to be honored. Lincoln also earned the Century Club Award for having over 100 active members, putting them among the top 10% of schools nationwide. And 3 students have earned Academic All-American status based on their GPA, their ACT scores, and their success in debate competitions. Because of these things and more, Lincoln debate coach Josie Meyer has been named the 2015 Coach of the Year by the Iowa High School Forensic League. I'm very pleased to introduce Josie to come up to say a few words about the recent successes of our Lincoln debate team. Coach Meyer?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Ahart, and members of the Des Moines Public School Board. My name is Josie Meyer, and this is my second year with the district, and it has been quite a 2 years. I've had a chance to do some amazing things and work with some of the most amazing students I think exist on the face of the earth. Since my time at Des Moines Lincoln, we've increased the number of people involved in debate from 15 to 20 before I got here to this year we have topped out at 83, and our season is still going strong. Lincoln in the last 2 years has qualified 8 members of our team in 5 different events to nationals, which last year was rivaling Roosevelt. I've worked very closely with both my colleagues in the Des Moines public and within the state to try to increase the number of students involved in debate, not only in Des Moines, but also in the state. And our efforts are starting to show fruits. I would like to say that I'm very glad for the opportunities that Des Moines public has given me over the last 2 years. It's been an amazing journey. I've brought a couple of students of mine today who would like to voice their thanks for the opportunities they have gotten. First, we've got Josie O'Connor Miller. Josie is currently a junior at Lincoln. She is one of our national qualifiers this year. She will be traveling to Dallas with us, representing West Iowa, part of the West Iowa team on the World's Debate team, which will be representing Team USA in the international competition at nationals. We also have freshman Aspen Butler. Aspen, as a freshman, is the first alternate in dramatic interpretation. She is also placed 4th in the state as a freshman. They'd like to say a couple words.
First and foremost, I'd just like to thank the board for this opportunity. Debate has really been key not only to my high school career, but also recently when I transferred to Des Moines Public Schools this year from a different school district. The debate team was really key in me finding friends and being able to find a community and really a place to express myself further. Debate has definitely helped me to find my voice as a high schooler and as a person who is opinionated and who would like to be able to express themselves. It gives me a good outlet to be able to discuss things that most high schoolers might not want to discuss, political issues and things like that. And I've just been really happy and really overjoyed with the opportunities that debate has provided me, the travel and the learning experience.
Hi. Thank you. Speech and debate has been a really big part of my life, and never in a million years would I have seen myself going into high school being in any activities, considering I'm not very athletic or good at much. But the team was able to give me a home and able to show me that I'm capable of doing things that I never would have imagined that I'm capable of. And to be able to help me to have the skills that I have today, it's meant more than the world to me. And we're all like a team, and we're all a family, and it's the best thing ever.
I'd just like to say, again, I appreciate the support that that the school board and Des Moines Public Schools has given to the team. We're excited for our future. We're excited for the things we've got going. And, when I started debate back in 2001 in a small high school in Northwest Iowa, I never thought I would be doing something as great as this. So thank you all. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And our second recognition tonight. Last week, we had some great news to share with our community. Our graduation rate continued its upward trend. In fact, our graduation rate increased more than 2.5% to 81.68%, its highest mark since the current graduation rate formula went into effect in 2009, and a 9% gain in the past 6 years. As was noted when we announced this news, there are many initiatives that have contributed to this success, but perhaps none has been as visible as the graduation walk, our grassroots effort with United Way of Central Iowa and Wells Fargo that not only provides support to students who recently dropped out or are falling behind in credits, it also raises awareness among our community about the importance of helping every student graduate. There is no doubt it is making a difference. And as a result, the National School Boards Association recently awarded the Graduation Walk first place honors in their 21st annual Magna Awards. The Magna Awards recognize school districts and their leaders for taking bold and innovative steps to improve the lives of their students and their communities. 3 of our board members, Cindy Ellsburn, Connie Bozen, and Terry Caldwell Johnson, attended NSBA's recent annual conference where they were presented with the award. So I would like to ask one or all of you to share a little something about the event and to show off the award.
This. Right, so Terry, Connie, and I went to Nashville and participated in the conference and participated in the luncheon where we were awarded the fine plaque that Dr. Ahart is holding. There were a lot of recognitions that day, and Des Moines definitely stood out among the pack as a great program that has really made an impact on our students.
I guess I will say something. I just want to thank United Way for all the efforts. I remember when we first met, I think it was with our linkage committee, and we heard about this idea that had been done. And I mean, it's great that it's working now in a way to go after kids that are undercredited, because I think we'll reach them much sooner and make a bigger impact. So I want to thank United Way for all that they have done to support this program, and I think it was Wells Fargo that supported it last year with their financial help. So it couldn't happen without everybody, and the volunteers that come out. It's just amazing. I never thought a student would get in a car and come back and re-enroll by us going out to a door and saying, we want you back. And I think anybody that's been on the graduation walk will say it's a great experience. So when it comes up in September, I encourage everybody to sign up and come out.
A couple of things I would just offer. It was great to get this award, but let me tell you, there are so many amazing things happening in this district that there's no reason why we shouldn't be applying for this every year, and we shouldn't get just first place, but the grand prize. As I looked at the menu of schools that were being recognized and the kinds and types of things that they were doing, We're doing all that and then some. And I think we really need to step out and really begin to elevate so many of the amazing things that are happening in this district, because not only do our students deserve to be recognized for the things that they're doing, but our staff is doing wonderful things. And I think we really just need to elevate the notion of Des Moines Public Schools being a flagship district in this country.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent items. We allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak to an agenda item, please go to the information desk to sign up. Remarks must be germane to the agenda, and we ask that you avoid reference to personalities and character attacks, as those types of comments serve no productive purpose. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with a speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determinations as deemed necessary. We appreciate your input. Ms. Bozen, do you have the motion?
I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with a recommended action for each item on the consent agenda and include bills previously authorized and certified by the secretary and approved for payment by the board chair in the amount of $7,221,915.38 and unpaid bills in the amount of $2,463,929.23.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Bozen, a second by Mr. Blake. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is item E1, the Youth Advisory Committee, and this is an information item. For a little background, this is the third year of existence for our committee, our Youth Advisory Committee, which is codified in our board governance policy. The first year, the committee was charged with developing a survey to measure student engagement. Last year, the focus was on activities and bridging into interest in options K through 12, and was what I would call a transition year as far as participation and focus. This year, the committee has taken on a new life under the direction of Emily Lang and Christopher Rollins, and the student members are here and ready to tell you more about what they have been working on this year. So I invite the student committee to come on up and give us their presentation.
Good evening. I'm Madison Garcia, and I'm a sophomore from East High School.
I am Courtney Caldwell. I am a junior at Hoover High School. I'm Karima. I'm a junior at Hoover High School.
I'm Caleb Curtin Crumman, and I'm a junior at Roosevelt High School.
I'm Dierz Guano. I'm a sophomore at Lincoln.
I'm Moises Castellanos. I'm a sophomore at Roosevelt.
And we are all students from each Des Moines Public High School. We gather each month to discuss ways and how we want to improve our school and how we want our diverse voices to be heard in the school system.
This group is about improving the relationship between teachers and students. Today we are going to be talking about our missions, our outcomes, our visions, and our code of conduct, which we now call Understanding the Youth.
Our vision is to include the youth in district-wide decision-making that impacts the school and the school culture and student engagement. We as youth feel as if decisions are made without us and for us without our opinion.
Our mission is to create as well as procreate stronger student-teacher relationships so students have better opportunities to be more involved in the classroom.
Our first outcome would be transitioning from middle school to high school. At that time, it's very important for 8th graders to go to 9th grade because high school is where you start your education and it's where you start your future. And we want them to know that that is important. So we came up with, as people who've already been through the process, a top 10 list of what we thought is very important for them to know, like keeping your GPA up, being active, like making new friends and doing that. So we feel like that's very important for them to know. Okay, so our second outcome is also we want to generate a database of cultural proficient supplements and materials for the use in classroom. So this is one of our long-term goals, And what we feel is that we need to be more updated in culture and new technology, but also having different materials that will help us succeed in the future for the education that we're trying to achieve by getting new materials or just having new teaching styles so that we reach to every single student so that they're persuaded and motivated to continue high school.
A third and major outcome we hope to achieve is that of creating a code of conduct for a student-made code of conduct for teacher expectation that would that is composed of 4 major points. These are remixed learning, bridging the gap, keep it real, and creating a safe space.
Under Remixed Learning, we'd like the teachers to use a variety of teaching styles. For example, showing us articles or videos or having us work with whiteboards. Also, we want to provide alternatives for showcasing learning, and lastly, to have diverse group work, like working individually, having whole group discussions, or working with partners. These things will help trigger the brain to think in new ways and can keep us active in the classroom.
We would also like to see bridging the gap, which means all teachers, we feel as if the teachers should greet us at the door with high fives so we could feel more welcomed. We think that they should also relate important topics to our personal interests. So if the lessons should relate to our personal interests, so we'll be able to excel and it will be able to captivate our attention. And lastly, humanize our education. So we like to challenge our teachers. So when we ask, why does this matter, we can have a reality.
Our third point on our conduct is keeping it real. We want teachers to realize that we're not perfect and we know that they're not perfect. So part of this, we want them to know that we make mistakes, but you do too, and we are willing to accept you for your mistakes as long as you're accepting of ours. We also have to get us to know on a personal level, so if we can't quit, you can't quit. Sometimes we have bad days, and we just want teachers to understand and just give us a new opportunity for the next day to be something completely new. We also have don't label us or have preconceived ideas of who we are. We know that some teachers may had a sibling of ours from the past, and we just don't want to feel when we walk in the door that we're automatically labeled or they set us apart from the kids who may get it from the kids who don't. So we want to have equal opportunities.
Creating a safe space is about teachers willing to understand our language and our culture about what we talk about. Teachers making students feel welcome in the classroom and to be able to learn well in it. We also talk about challenging us with the higher expectations.
We would like to input this throughout all classrooms as well as through professional development for teachers and administrators to create better learning environments for students as well as a more respected relationship between the teachers and the students.
We now thank you for the time you've given us, and we hope you take our opinions and our points of view in consideration. As high school students, we've seen the needs in our classrooms, and we hope that we all together can fulfill them. Thank you for your time.
Don't go too far. You might have some questions to answer, don't forget. Board, do you have any comments or questions for our group? That's okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
So my question is sort of, how do you take your vision to reality? I mean, what's the plan for taking the words that you've written on paper and those that you've articulated this evening to some sort of actionable plan so that we can see how this is manifested in our buildings, with our teachers, with our principals? What are the next steps?
We hope that by implementing this through the professional development for the teachers and administrators so that they can figure out how it works, and like they have the weekly things on Wednesday where they have meetings with each other, and they could figure out how to better implement it, and we could also help by thinking of ways that the students would actually listen to it.
Okay. What about other students? How are you going to engage other students in understanding the work and embracing the work?
Well, we want to engage students because this is their education. So we would like to hold like workshops or just have it like during advisory, which we have every Wednesday. Just like a group of us from each of our schools can go in and just talk about it and how we feel that we're actually here. We're here for the teachers, but our real purpose is that the kids that we go to school with and the kids that we know and the kids that we grow up with will have a better education so that they can succeed in life. So that is our biggest outcome, is to seeing success between all of our students.
Mr. Barron?
Well, first of all, y'all did really well, and it's been a thrill watching this process develop in these meetings, and I'm proud of you all for standing up here and sharing your work with us. I think my colleague Terry makes a very good point, and I'm going to jump off of that, which is, we've got about a month and a half, or less than 6 weeks left of school, which means maybe 1 or 2 more meetings of this group before the end of the school year. So I hope as you're moving forward, you're thinking about what this is going to look like next year and keeping the momentum going, because everything that you've laid out here, I think, are good ideas that should meet little resistance, and especially because of the people that are bringing them to us, because they're coming from students and from student leaders in our district. But it's going to take engagement and energy next year to make this happen. So be thoughtful of that in these next couple of meetings before y'all are done this year. But thank you. Good job.
Yeah,
very good job.
Great. Anybody else?
Mr. Allen, do you have anything that you'd like to add to inform the conversation?
I would, and thank you so much for the opportunity. We certainly want to be able to utilize our current structure with what we do with our stipends, and to be able to utilize the people in our high schools as well as our middle schools to work at how do we integrate this so that it's just not just another group, but it becomes part of the philosophy of the things that we do, to making sure that we are finding out what is it that students want to do, not just what do we think that they should be doing. And so, as we move forward, looking at next year and in terms of our planning for this coming year, we'll be integrating some of these things, and so we're pretty excited about the opportunity that's come forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Great job.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you did a really great job, and I also have had fun coming to the meetings and watching the process, because you guys did go through a process to get to what we're looking at on our screens now, and there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of discussion, and absolutely everything that should happen to come up with what you have done. So I do look forward to watching it play out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your leadership, guys.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is item F1, public hearing for fiscal year 2016 proposed budget resolution and adoption. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item F1, public hearing for FY 2016 proposed budget resolution and adoption? Hearing no one, I will close the public hearing. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
I recommend the board pass the resolution and adopt the budget in order to submit the approved budget to Polk County by April 15, 2015, as required by Iowa law.
Okay, and board, if there's no objections, we might like to discuss and vote on the resolution separately from the budget. Is that okay with everyone to do that?
Yes.
All right. So I'll take a motion in a second to approve the proposed pre-K through 12 school board supplemental state aid resolution. And then we can discuss.
What was it? You want to move approval?
Yep, move approval. Yep.
Move approval.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and we can open it up for discussion. regarding the resolution. And just for a little background on that, as we're aware, there is still gridlock at the State House regarding supplemental state aid with little movement. Originally, Democrats proposed 6% and then came down to 4% as compared to the governor's original proposal of 1.25%. That has been held at what has essentially been a party line vote. Since there's been little willingness for additional movement, and Democrats recently did come down somewhat, but again, the Republicans are holding at 1.25%. This resolution that is proposed is asking that that a decision be made as soon as possible, and that we do so in the area of 4% versus the 1.25%. So just a little background there. Anybody have any comments?
If I may, because I get asked this quite a bit, the 1.25% would be the new money, what we used to call allowable growth. Now, it is true that the teacher leadership and compensation grants for next year are slated to fund about 2/3 of the students in the state, or about 2/3 of the districts, which adds $100 million to education funding. However, that is completely different than supplemental state aid. That those dollars that, for instance, Des Moines will get about $10 million, but that will go directly to either salaries or salary supplements for 25% of our certified teaching staff. This is not money that we can use for any other purpose except for identified teacher leadership compensation positions. So it is not the same as what we used to call allowable growth, which we now call supplemental state aid. If you put that, what would be about $100 million spent on TLC, teacher leadership and compensation, for FY16, and added that to the 1.25%, you'd still be under 4% new money. But you really do have to take that TLC money off the table, because that is not something that's negotiated over. It's nothing we can use for anything other than the salary or salary supplements for about 25% of our certified teaching staff. Thank you.
It was never intended to flow to us that way. They were supposed to be totally and completely independent buckets of money, not supplanting of existing funds.
Exactly right. And to illustrate, this current year that we're in, we had 4% allowable or supplemental state aid. Those districts that were funded with TLC, that was money completely, to your point, Terry, completely above and beyond the supplemental state aid, because it's for an entirely different purpose. Very good point.
That's what's the most disappointing. I served on that committee from the very beginning, and every meeting we went to, we talked about this has to be above and beyond, and in fact, it was very clearly laid out that this can't be in place of our regular state aid, and it got rolled into, and it's really unfair to this people that don't even have teacher leadership. I mean, I can't imagine these poor districts, because what percentage will they even get? And that's why I got a little frustrated. So my letter that was going to all the legislators went to the letter to the editor, and I still say, this isn't a political issue, this is more of a moral issue. We owe kids more than what we've been offered this year, especially in light of choices that are made. I think we were told that we had, there's the apple's only so big. Well, I just say it's how you slice that apple that I don't agree with. And I think they owe it to the students of Iowa, especially when we see the improvements. You see these kids that were here tonight, and you know the programs that you can do, and you want to expand. And to think that we're going back to having really tough financial times when the state really isn't having that tough a financial time. I can fully understand when we took across-the-board cuts. We've done everything throughout the last few years, and Terry and I have lived through the cuts and what it means to programs and the time that it takes for the staff to come up, as I say, being card readers as to which percent did you want to plan on. Start at 4, start at 1.25, do you have the 2.6, what scenario do you want, or could you end up with 0? And that's a reality, and I don't think no business can run like this. Right. Nobody should have to work in this kind of environment where you do not know, especially when it's pretty much, I think, in code. I'm sure there's a loop on that, but this should have been settled over a year ago. And to put districts in this kind of position when we're not in tough financial times is really too bad, and it's a disservice to, I think, the students in our state.
Great. Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you. Yes, and, I think that, we all hear it when it comes to the people are running for office and are in office, they talk about the children are first. And a quote that I heard that I can't attribute to who actually started, but it says, don't tell me what your priorities are, show me your budget and I'll tell you what your priorities are. And this really sums it up for me is, they all talk about the children are first, but when they actually do the budget, as Connie said, that's not the first slice out of the apple. So, it really, that quote kind of sums it up for me as far as what's going on up there. We do need to put all students first in this state, and they need to take that slice out of the apple first and work on the rest later. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just to add to the record, Pat, the quote about budgets and priorities is actually by a former school board member who's currently serving as Vice President of the United States. Joe Biden. And it's Joe Biden's quote, and he's exactly right. I think it's entirely relevant to this discussion. I just got an email, a lot of us did probably today, from Senator Quirmbach and Representative Ruff, who are representing and leading the Democratic delegation, pushing for an appropriate and sufficient allocation for schools this year. And I think this is really relevant up here. So there's an agency that kind of supplies all of the research for both sides up there, the Legislative Service Agency. And their job is really to be nonpartisan, just the facts and put them forward. So in their message, they say the LSA says we can provide a reasonable increase in state supplemental aid for schools, keep our state savings account full at over $700 million, end the year with a surplus, and follow our balanced budget law. Now, this is obviously coming from the Democrats, but they're referencing a nonpartisan entity here who really, I think, throws back everything that we're hearing from the other side of the aisle on this one. It's entirely disappointing. It puts us in an awkward position relative to one of our key responsibilities as public elected officials, which is how we spend taxpayers' dollars. But it's ultimately a moral issue for us because it's about the type of education that we provide, and that's why we ran for these positions in the first place, is to do the best we possibly can. And it's unfair, it's frustrating, and it's frankly insulting that we and every other district in the state is in this position at the very beginning of April. And we deserve better from our legislature. And I hope folks are hearing that and will keep that in mind the next time they have an opportunity to make their voices heard.
Agreed. Mr. Howard?
I think what we're seeing up there is, I hate to use the word a temper tantrum, but in a way that kind of reminds me of that, because I believe education is being held hostage because of other votes that have taken place, and people have been browbeated and arm twisted to vote for other issues that they weren't particularly wholehearted for. So somebody's going to have to be the fall guy, and I think for whatever reason this year we got picked on. And so now, for the moment, we're being held hostage. I think like what Rob and what Pat and have said, no business could ever survive doing this the way that they want us to do it. First of all, they're breaking their own law.
Right.
If we did this, we would either get one of those infamous check marks or we would be decertified or something like that. Them, they just go up and throw an amendment on it and say, let's move on. That's abuse of power. Plain and simple, that is abuse of power. And I hope people will go back and make these individuals accountable. Some of these people, who I think it was Tom was saying, who didn't get the supplemental, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? They're going to have to go back and use that nasty word, consolidation, or things like that. And we all know what consolidation does to a town, especially if you lose your post office and your school. One of the two, you're dead. And that's a reality And as I stated before at another meeting, that this is the perfect storm. It hasn't diverted course. And I meant to expand that it's just not us urban schools, it's the small schools too. And people need to understand that the end victim on this is their children and their grandchildren and future generations, and how we've gone from first to, 35th, 42nd, somewhere in there. It's not the right way. And I think what we've done with that kind of commitment or lack of commitment is just remarkable, that the districts in the state, and they should be commended. But while we should be commended, I think people up on that hill need to be taken to the woodshed, as we used to say. And it's about time people take them to the woodshed. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just have one quick one. I certainly agree with everything that's been said. If we're actually voting on this exact language, I want to make sure we spell Governor Branstad's last name right. So
Really?
it's got an extra D in it.
Okay.
Maybe we don't.
Right. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, then edited version. And then if I'm correct, if we adopt this resolution, we'll sign it and pass it along, but it's also a resolution that will be inviting other pre-K-12 districts to participate in as well, correct? Yes. Right.
I think we should. I think there's some other districts that we've talked to that would be interested in it.
Right. I would agree. Okay, if we're ready, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. If we're ready, we can vote. Okay, the vote is approved 7-0. Now may I have a motion and a second to approve the FY 2016 proposed budget and adoption?
Second.
Okay, we have
Don't everybody jump up.
motion by Ms. Boson, a second by Mr. Howard, and we can open up discussion regarding the budget. If there are any questions or comments regarding that.
One of the things that recently I saw was that we were going to take, is it $30,000 or something like that out from the wellness? So, Tom, was that your letter that said something about closing out the wellness account?
That was in the consent
Oh, the one that's
agenda.
in this building?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
What we're doing there is, it was an enterprise fund. And we were simply, since there was no other activity flowing into it, basically, just cleaning up our general ledger and so forth. We just, I think it was a consent item.
It was number 13.
Yeah. And so we're just closing it out, and we're just simply closing it out, basically.
And I saw that it was going to go into general
Yeah, but
fund.
when you close them out, they do flow into the general fund.
And, I'd have no problem with that. But the thing I was asking was going to ask if there's a possibility that I see that there's not going to be an increase in the middle school program activity account. Am I reading this right? It says it will be maintained,
Yeah,
Yeah. Remember we talked about, because of all the unknowns, we would like to expand the program, basically. But what I said in our work sessions, and also what I said at the last meeting, basically, that we would we would sustain the same level of funding that we currently funded at, basically.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was a possibility that, I know that it's not a lot of money, but, that really is a very important.
It definitely is, and that will still allow for some, even if we aren't able to increase it beyond the 800,000, that still will allow for some increased participation, because some of the dollars that were spent this year in particular, and a little bit the year before, which was a much smaller investment, was laying some groundwork on some things that are sort of one-time or infrequently recurring expenses, like wrestling uniforms, for instance, and some wrestling mats and some equipment that we just didn't have in place that are not recurring expenses. So even if we keep the funding at the same level, we're still going to be able to expand participation.
Yeah, I just
to some degree.
I just heard that I know we went to track and field and things this year, and one of the people were telling me that they had 2 buses for their track team, and I thought, that's great. I mean,
yeah.
If you have a 30-passenger bus and 2, I'm thinking that's like 100 kids,
Right.
and that's one school. So it's just a good thing, and I hate to see us get bogged down. Again, going back to the previous conversation.
Exactly, though. that is one of the areas where we're, we'll do what we can, but until we know what new money is, we're
Yeah. Okay. It's just an observation.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We do have a motion by Ms. Bozen and a second by Mr. Howard. Please vote. All right, the vote is approved, 7-0. Next item on our agenda is item G1, Board Governance Policies. This is a discussion and action item. May I please have a motion and a second to approve item G1, Board Governance Policies?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Barron, would you mind opening up the discussion on this item? With a little background and.
Yeah, gladly. So the board has been in a process since December of re-examining and reevaluating our board governance policies. This is a set of policies that are available on the district website, at the school board page, and these are the policies that kind of put the walls around 4 main things that we do. One is governance. The other one is management limitations. Third is board management delegation, and then ultimately, and maybe most importantly, it talks about the student expectations that we as a board have. And this is a very important document for us, and I think this process, while it has added a lot of new language, taken some old out, has also, I think, at least for this board member, given me an opportunity to better own this document and the expectations that it has for me as a board member. We have met since December, I think about 5 times to discuss this either in subcommittee or in full committee. The intent tonight is to discuss the changes that are laid out in this document, make any additional changes. I have 3, and then vote on the new document tonight. So that's it. I'm more than happy to lead with my changes to get the ball rolling. First, 2.6, which is emergency superintendent succession. Actually, there's 2 changes to that one that I'm looking at right now as I'm looking at the table of contents page. Superintendent's not spelled correctly, so.
We don't like to spell words right.
Apparently
Or names.
not.
What happens
There's a superfluous D.
It's an emergency superintendent succession. So
There's a superfluous D.
I would love that we just fix that one. And relevant to this discussion, and I think a fair reminder to the public that we are volunteer people that are doing this on our own time. There's an extra word in the document that currently exists in 2.6, the second line towards the very end of that line. There's an extra is that we will strike tonight. My other changes are a little bit more consequential to this document. So I started with the easy stuff, and this ranges from a conversation that we as a board had a couple weeks ago, but going back to 2.1 and 2.2 in this document, which are treatment of students. Currently, treatment of students, public and volunteers is 2.1, and treatment of staff and the public, faculty and staff is 2.2. Really, without making any substantive or any changes at all to the policies themselves, they're more appropriately titled differently. So I'm proposing that we take 2.1 and make that treatment of students and parents, because this is really about the non-affiliated people coming into our school. This is about non-paid folks and non-volunteers. We would need to strike volunteers from the first line as well to make that fit. And then really then you just flip over to 2.2 and we add volunteers to the category along with faculty and staff, because for the purposes of this document and this policy as you read it, this is really about staff and volunteers and this treating them in the same light. So that's the second change that I have. And then the third change is 1.2. This process started with suggested language from a consultant that the board has hired to better focus and address our job, and so we dropped in a lot of the language that he gave us. When we did that, I think not all of it aligns with the way we title things. So there's a change at the bottom of 1.2 and number 4 that references the administrative policies and procedures. That should be board governance policies, this talking about this document. So it was just generic language that I think he gave us. So there are 3 instances in A under 4 in which we reference administrative policies and procedures that should be changed to board governance policies. And if someone would wake up the public, I'd appreciate it, because I know that was entirely too boring.
It's very exciting, Rob. Don't sell yourself short. Okay, any other?
I've got a couple
Okay.
things, or questions at least. In 1.4, this is agenda planning. In 3B, the request, any board member may request that a subject be included on an agenda for a meeting no less than 14 calendar days. I was just wondering about the thought process behind that. And the only reason I bring it up is because usually it's, there are 14 days between many of our meetings, and it seems like it might be good to have just like at least a day or two post, the first meeting of the month, to think about something that might have happened at that meeting to bring up for the next meeting, rather than have it due essentially before the first meeting of the month.
I don't recall what the.
I'm not sure.
what
And
the
I wasn't
process
involved,
is.
obviously, with the,
No, we didn't. I don't believe so. What, to 7? 7 wouldn't have been appropriate.
like 10.
So part of that, though, too, is that our board packet is coming out 10 days prior to the meeting. So in order to put an agenda item on there and actually have allow staff the time to put together the information to go out with the packet, I'm thinking that might be part of the reasoning behind that.
That would be what I would surmise, yeah.
I think we had a lot of discussion about timeframes, 14-7, around a variety of different sections of the policies. But I think our specific conversation went back to the actual distribution of the packet and the need to have that lead time in order to have an item posted on a regular agenda based on our new schedule. But we did have a lot of conversation around what the appropriate timeframes might be. But I also think it's important to recognize that even if we don't have ample time to actually get something on an agenda, it doesn't mean that at the end of agenda you can't bring up a request for something to be placed on a subsequent agenda. So it may not be at the meeting day that you specifically wanted it, but it doesn't mean that there's still not an opportunity, say for instance, at the end of any regular meeting, to request that an item be placed on the next subsequent board meeting agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any other, does that,
I think that's an interesting thought, and I guess I think that the interesting part to me is, finding the sweet spot between obviously making it appropriate for the board and giving the board an opportunity to set the agenda in a thoughtful way. And you're right. I mean, 2 weeks from today, we're meeting again, and what if after today's meeting you want to propose that something's on there now? But we also want to give staff appropriate time to have that type of stuff prepared, and these things can be kind of time consuming. I will note that on C, although B is about a board member proposing something go on the agenda, C says that no item can be placed on the agenda less than 7 calendar days in advance. So we still have time between that 14-day cutoff for a board member to propose something and an item to go on the agenda. So maybe, within that structure, there lies enough room to make an effective policy.
Well, and I think the other thing that we talked about was, I think we're flexible enough to at least try this, and if for whatever reason it doesn't appear to work, or if it's not, the best configuration for us moving forward, we can certainly determine, what the next best option is and move to amend or change our policies. So I think that's sort of the unwritten rule, I guess, we had going into this is, in some respects, some of this is sort of new territory, and others it's not. But I think recognizing that we're all reasonable people, if there's a reason to want to change it or need to change it, we have the ability to do that as well.
I think some things come up at a meeting too, that at the end of the meeting or that next day, you're still within, before even agenda planning, or if a conversation comes up at a board meeting, then it's something that could be added. But I think there could be a compromise on the timing based on the 7 days out that we have versus what we've had, that we still would have time before, depending on what it is. It could be something that's very simple to add on, that doesn't take a lot of detail work or whatever. So I think that's some of the criteria.
okay, does anybody have anything else? Okay, do we need to amend the motion since it was with the edits?
You have other ones, Nathan?
Not really.
I don't think,
I don't think so. I
these
think
are-
we
they
just
don't
I'm
change
basically
the-
satisfied.
Yeah, change the subject.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with,
Okay.
Okay.
the current language is fine. Yeah, we don't need to
Okay.
amend it.
Okay. And so we do have a motion by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson and a second by Ms. Bozen. And so this would be approval with the given edits that were made tonight. All right, so please vote. Motion passes 7-0. The next item on our agenda is item G2, Audit Committee Update.
Can I just make one quick comment before we move off of that? So this was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be when I signed up for this task. But
Yes, it
I feel
was.
like we ended up with a really good product, and I want to thank Rob for his leadership on this as well.
Yes, thank you, Rob. It was
Yes,
much
thank
more
you.
work than we thought.
Thank you. It was
Much
fun.
more for you.
This is why I signed up for the job.
You policy wonk.
Okay, next item on the agenda is G2, Audit Committee Update. This is an information item, and there is not a presentation. Do we have anybody here to answer? Or
No,
you-
but I can
you
answer some of the questions. Some of the
Okay.
questions,
So we were given a report in our board packet. Does anybody have any questions about the report, or any comments, discussion?
From a standpoint of the board, I would have to say that our audit committee is the most engaged group of people that we've ever had. And I know I've said this for the last 2 or 3 years. We have more members in it, and they take it very seriously. So I think any of us on the board should be very comfortable with what is going on, not only with our internal auditors, but our audit committee that are the volunteers. They're doing a great job.
It's good to hear. Okay. Hearing no questions or comments, we'll move on to the next item, which is G3, open enrollment for the 2015-16 school year. Also an information item. And there, we received a memo in our board packet. And again, is there anybody here to answer questions, or does anybody have questions to be answered?
Eleanor left. We got a couple of questions since that I believe were answered to board member satisfaction prior to.
Okay. All right. Then next on the agenda, we have items of privilege. I will start with the chair's report.
Need to vote on that?
Oh, no, it wasn't an information item.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, information item, okay. So items of privilege, chair's report. Just wanted to remind everyone that our UEN Day on the Hill is scheduled for April 15th. We begin at 9:15 a.m. at the Lucas Building cafeteria for a briefing and go over the day's plan. On that day, students from the Youth Advisory Committee and Urban Leadership and Movement 515 will also be joining us to engage with legislators regarding our priorities. And some will also bring poetry to share. We have a room reserved for that from 11:30 to 1. Please let me know if and when you plan to attend. I would expect we would wrap up around 2 p.m. that day. I was able to attend a forum on early childhood education last week in Washington, D.C. The intention of the panel and town hall meeting was to begin a conversation on pre-K education framework, which will continue throughout the year. I anticipate the ability to give input at various points throughout the year and throughout the course of the conversations that are happening, and hope DMPS can add to the discussion and inform any proposals that may come out of this process, as I think we are a model for effective pre-K delivery. And then the final thing that I have is to let the board know that I will be absent for the next meeting, the 21st. I have a conflict with, it's the Grand Blue Mile, and my Kids Striders program does their victory run that evening. So you can maybe look out the window and down the street and see hundreds of kids, including Des Moines Schools kids, running that evening on Grand Avenue. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Mr. Howard?
Are you done, Tom?
Well, you, and then I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, this won't take a second, but as you know, it's kind of getting to the silly season as we see people coming in the state for elections and things like that. So I have decided that I'll throw my hat in the silly season also by saying that I am not going to run for re-election this September, and that that's really all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Okay, Dr. Ahart, Superintendent's report.
Yeah, well, first, I wanted to just call the public's attention to what I think is a very impressive increase in our graduation rate. As this board knows better than the rest of the community, the challenges that we face with poverty and ELL and refugee students. The challenge in graduating all of our students becomes more difficult each and every year, and that combined with the, at best, uncertain budget scenarios that the legislature and the governor provide for us. So the increase in the graduation rate is that much more impressive. And if you read the press release that Phil's office sent out when we were able to finally release the data, which they told us about a month in advance, and then we had to have it embargoed for some reason for a month. If you look, I would ask you if you still have that email, or I could have Phil resend it, just to look through all of the things that this district has decided strategically to do to support those students. And really the board needs to take a whole lot of credit, because a lot of things have been done, and some of those things have been a bit risky, and some of them we haven't even seen the fruits of yet. I really believe that moving Scavo to Central Campus in brand new facilities on 4th floor with better access to a wider variety of engaging programming is going to help us take the next big step forward. The graduation walk, which we talked about earlier, the board has made has supported some pretty courageous moves to help support all of our kids to be successful. So I would just ask you to revel in that a bit. And then I would like to thank our staff and our students. We're not quite finished yet, but the Iowa assessments have been underway now for almost 2 weeks. It's an arduous process every year. I don't think anyone really enjoys it. It's a very important event for us, though the data is maybe not as valuable as the effort that goes into collecting it might be. We've shown good progress over the last 3 years, and I really appreciate the good attitude and support that the students give one another, and all of the tremendous work that our teachers do to ensure that we have the right conditions and the right dispositions in our students' heads before they go through this annual ritual. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. We will now adjourn the meeting and we'll reconvene shortly for a closed session.